Hello, second graders. Tonight for homework, you're going to keep practicing comparison problems. And remember, when we do comparison story problems, we want to represent our work using comparison bars. So right away, I'm going to draw these comparison bars on my homework to make sure I'm ready to plug in the numbers and to solve for the answer. So now I can read the story problem. In the classroom, there are 25 fiction books and 64 nonfiction books. How many fewer fiction books than nonfiction books are in the classroom? The first thing I need to identify is who or what has more. That way I know which value to put in the larger rectangle. It looks like 64 nonfiction books is my larger quantity. So I'm going to put 64 in the larger rectangle, and I'm going to put N for nonfiction. So now that I know who has more, I need to decide 25 fiction books. Is that telling me the difference for the difference circle, or is it telling me the lesser quantity for the rectangle? Well, since it doesn't say more or fewer fiction books, I believe that is the quantity that goes in the rectangle. So I'm going to put F for fiction. Down here, the question, how many fewer, that's what we're missing, and that's what goes in the difference circle. This is what I'm trying to find out. What is the difference between nonfiction books and fiction books? Well, remember, we like to think of this just like a math mountain, where 64 is greater than 25, which makes it the total. So one way I could solve this is using subtraction. 64 minus 25 equals our unknown, or I can count up 25, count up from 25 until I get to 64. These two equations, remember, mean the same thing. I think I'm going to count up as my method. And remember, we practiced the number line strategy for counting up. That's how I'm going to do it. 25. I'm going to count up till I get to 64. I'm going to make one jump of 5. That gets me to 30. Then I'm going to make my jumps of 10, 40, 50, 60. And then one last little jump of 4 for 64, and these were my 10s. Now I can count and see 10, 20, 30, 35, plus 4 more, that's 39. So the difference between 64 and 25 is 39, and I would make sure to label this as books. Here's another example problem. Oops. Boris has 16 more cherries than Salango. Now, right away there, I noticed something. In the word problem, it said 16 more. It didn't just say Boris has 16, it says 16 more cherries. So because that number is right next to the word more, it's telling me the difference. So that number is going to go in the difference circle. Boris has 16 more cherries than Salango. That first sentence also tells me, remember the question, who has more? If we leave out the number, if we take away the 16 just for a second and we read it, it says Boris has more. So I'm going to make sure that Boris has the large rectangle and Salango has the smaller rectangle. Okay, now let's plug in some more numbers. Boris has 16 more cherries than Salango. Boris has 60. Notice how next to that number, it doesn't say more or less. So that number is the one that goes in Boris's rectangle. He has 60 cherries. How many cherries does Salango have? We're trying to figure out how many he has. So again, think of this either as an addition or subtraction problem because 60 is your total. You could take your total minus your partner to equal your other partner, or we could count up from 16 until we get to our total, which is 60. I'm going to do the subtraction method because I think I can do this in my head. First, I'm going to take 60 minus 10 because I know that 16 is made up of 10 and 6. So 60 minus 10 equals 50. And then I have to take 50 minus the last 6 that's left over here, and that equals 44. So my final answer, how many cherries does Salongo have? I figured out that he has 44 cherries. So I would make sure to write my label so it matches my story problem.